Now, there's plenty of economic doom and gloom around, so let's kick off this bumper 2-hour Friday edition of On the Money with some good news. Because big banks who fail to tackle fraud will be named and shamed under government-backed plans to ensure that victims who transfer money to scammers are fully compensated. The banking watchdog, the payment systems regulator, wants banks to reimburse customers who've lost out and for such repayments to be compulsory. The Economic Secretary to the Treasury, John Glenn, says the government will, quotes, legislate to address any barriers to regulatory action at the earliest opportunity. Banks and building societies will also have to publish data on fraud prevention and reimbursement rates, and they could face fines if they don't treat victims fairly. So-called authorised push payments, or APP fraud, when victims are tricked into transferring money to a fraudster, have grown steadily over recent years. Back in 2017, such fraud amounted to just over £200 million a year, according to the industry trade body UK Finance, with banks reimbursing just a fraction of that. As APP fraud's grown over recent years to almost £500 million in 2020, compensation payments from banks have risen but are still well below half what victims have lost. During this COVID crisis, APP fraud has surged once again. It's up 71% during the first half of this year, with criminals stealing the equivalent of an astonishing £4 million a day. Until now, bank customers have faced a lottery when it comes to getting refunds, with different banks interpreting the rules in different ways. During one 3-month period last year, one unnamed bank, Y, issued refunds in just 1% of fraud cases. The Financial Ombudsman, which settles disputes between banks and customers, has ruled in favour of 3/4 of victims refused bank refunds, suggesting banks have been systematically avoiding making payouts to fully deserving and innocent customers. But now, in what the consumer group Which describes as a huge win for consumers, the bank fraud compensation scheme will change from the existing voluntary code introduced in 2019 to a mandatory scheme underpinned by law. Good news, but why is this only happening now? And that's your On the Money question today. APP bank fraud. Why has this law change taken so long?